All right. We are live, running late today. My fault. It is Wednesday, December 17th, and it is almost Christmas. It is almost New Year's. We have a great guest today and a lot to talk about, wrapping the year and all the changes that have gone on. But before we get started, we'll have John Sibley Butler play some music.
Chestnuts roasting on an open flame, and Jack Frost nipping at your nose. Yuletide carols being sung by a choir, and folks dressed up like Eskimos. Everybody knows a turkey and some mistletoe will help to make the season bright. And tiny tots with their eyes on a glow will find it hard to sleep tonight.
Woo! All right. Well done, Johnny. So, it's hard to figure out how to wrap up the year. Um, you guys will probably be able to remember everything that we have discussed and covered, but I can't think of anything really super important other than the fact that we have talked over and over and over about the grid and how energy is gone from being a word that most people really didn't know what it all meant, to really understanding even what ERCOT is, and the fact that a company that lives in this space has gone from being perhaps in a um, not well known, not well understood world to one where so many people now really want to know what's going on and be part of it. And as many people have said in the past, to me, when I started energy in 2003, when I joined Austin Energy, that, why would I want to be in that obscure, sort of never changing, sort of dinosaur, old-fashioned world. And as I remember joining, and then everything that has come after has become probably the most exciting place to be. So needless to say, our guests will probably have things to share around that. But my thoughts are, it's just amazing what's been happening in the energy world, Johnny, and I wonder your thoughts as we have our last digital roundtable 2025 and have our guests here in a company that really gave me the opportunity to make so many things happen.
Well, it's very good because I just finished an article that will appear in a great magazine, and
Hmm.
it's about the controls that's needed for the grid. It's with Richard Scrindle. It's be in the Homeland Security Journal, and the whole idea is that America has certainly concentrated on creating more energy, but not on controlling the energy that we have. So therefore, we can certainly increase capacity. But the question is, if you have the controls, can you really create the analog of a whole nother power plant, if you will, once you have the control? I hope that will appear in Homeland Security pretty soon, and also with Richard Scrindle and in the grid pathway. We're hoping to get to the
Hmm.
higher levels of government to really talk about the controls that's needed for the grid. We realize that we're dealing with an organization that is being managed. I mean, it is not like a private kind of enterprise. It is a regulated industry. So the question becomes, how did you quote put new controls on? Or let's say disrupt a regulated energy industry. So of all the things that
Mhm.
we've talked about in energy, I'm surprised by one basic response. When you ask people, are we running out of electricity and will we run out of electricity? The answer has been no. We have this under control. We're concentrating on capacity. We're building power plants. We're building nuclear power plants, along the Pertinalis, for the great state of Texas. But more importantly, as long as my lights come on, then I am good. Now, as we move to the old idea of data centers and what data centers take to stay on, the entire electrification of America from electric cars, right, to electric buses to electric 18-wheelers, where we must ask, do we have the capacity? And the question that is amazing is, yes, we don't have a problem.
Mm.
And if we look at everything, I think that we might be heading toward a quote Pearl Harbor in the energy crisis. But in all of my conversations with people, especially here in the state of Texas, is that it is under control and that we will not run out of electricity and we will not have a Pearl Harbor in electricity because we're building additional capacity. So what we're trying to do is to give an AI put the capacity stuff with the controls. And being a regulated industry and being, states having their own controls, like we in Texas have our own, kind of control. We want to go to the White House and ask for some help on putting the new technologies on the grid. So I think that because we've been through the great whiteout in Austin, Texas, and I found that very interesting. My wife is from Cleveland, Ohio, and she said we got to get a generator. I said, look, I'm from Louisiana. Everybody's got generators.
Mhm.
So I finally put a generator in just in case, but I didn't. I thought it was a 100-year thing. But Andreas, and finally, I would just say this: we've always solved problems in America, and we have never put at the very, very center of the consciousness of America electricity. We take it for granted. My lights are on, and that's what we
Mhm.
do. Only thing I want to happen is my lights to come on, and when I plug up my electric guitar, that it comes on. And unless there is an outage, then this is when we say, "Oh my God, what is going on? Do we indeed need to change things?" Other than that, that's my life. They're tearing up Great Hills Country Club, so I can't play golf there. And also golf club, my other club. I mean, we're going to do stuff out there, so it's kind of cold, so I haven't been hitting the golf ball. But I've been playing my guitar.
Gotcha, gotcha. Llewellyn, what are your thoughts about all this?
Well, thank you. I think that this was the year when the essentialist nature of electricity became ever more apparent. It's always been essential, but suddenly it's taken on a much greater urgency. We are electrifying very, very fast, and this is putting a stress on the utility system, and it's one that's not easily fixed and addressed. The rate of growth has been stimulated by the conversion of a lot of transportation to electricity. Intercity trucks are very quickly changing over. By 2030, half of the intercity trucking, that's deliveries in the city, will be electric, maybe higher. That includes the post office, FedEx, UPS, etc. And of course, the big dramatic one that everybody knows about is the growth of data centers, the seemingly endless need for data centers and their endless need for vast quantities of electricity that are really upending the electric market. Now, it's reasonable to assume at some point engineering technology will change the rate of demand growth, that we will either get a better chip. We're already seeing changes within data centers, for example, using water cooling rather than electric cooling. And one day we may get a photon chip, and that will change everything again. Meanwhile, the race is on, and it's pretty critical Weather is the great joker. We can more or less predict and stay within the demand-supply equation unless we get aberrant weather, in which case you can't. I think the most significant thing in the last couple of years, excuse me, has been the growth of batteries, the deployment of batteries, the reliability of batteries, the descending cost of batteries, and the variety of batteries. Both the head of ERCOT, Pablo Vegas, and the head of California ISO, Elliot Menza, have told me that they got through last winter because of batteries, and batteries give more life to renewables, wind and solar, become infinitely more viable. And I would point out that Texas is a leader in wind generation, and number 2, I think it is, in solar. So that although it is the home of so much fossil fuel, it also is a leader in these new generation or new sources of generation. The administration is not enthusiastic about wind and solar. It's actively hostile to wind, but I think the utilities are hoping very quietly to wait out the administration. Wind and solar are the cheapest power you can buy. Attempts to bring new nuclear online are admirable, but they certainly don't appear to be cheap. When we look at small modular reactors, which have had a lot of endorsement lately, we don't know the costs. They're supposed to be cheaper because they're going to be manufactured in factories, but we don't know that. We have no evidence of it yet because they haven't been deployed, and we've got to get over the hump of the first of a kind. Meanwhile, there's evolution going on all along the electric chain. We're seeing more grid edge technologies, more ideas about what you do at the grid edge. We're seeing a growth in distributed energy resources that have become very important and may become even more so as it is managed by artificial intelligence. We're seeing the incorporation into utility systems to a much greater extent than heretofore of rooftop solar, particularly if they have a battery associated with them. And we are also seeing a preparedness by the very big customers to put up money behind the meter to generate their own electricity. Where this comes out, we don't know. I tend to think utilities know how to make electricity and tech companies don't. And eventually they'll find out they face the same limits and constraints. At the moment, those constraints are permitting, the supply chain, and the human supply chain, a lack of labor. And as we go into the future with more construction, the labor shortage is going to be very, very acute, particularly if we try to build a lot of nuclear power plants. So electricity is an exciting place. It's the place to be. I think one of the things that's open, that is an open issue, and that is whether coal will revive, not because the president thinks it should revive, but because there will be a technological breakthrough in carbon capture and storage, or some other aspect of the combustion of coal that makes it more acceptable. Everything else has had its technological moment. Gas had the arrival of the aeroderivative turbine and fracking, and nuclear. The cost of solar panels came down when we got away from thermal solar to photovoltaic solar, and windmills have gotten better and more cheaper all along the way. So coal, if we're going to use coal, it needs a technological breakthrough. Otherwise, it's full steam ahead and hope that we don't have a terrible year for weather, because if we do, we will have blackouts.
All right. Well, with all that said, let me introduce our guest, Matthew Russell, Chief Technology Officer at Austin Energy. He'll be with us. And Austin Energy is my energy alma mater, where I was CIO from 2003 to 2010. And Matthew has a phenomenal opportunity to share with us today all the great things that they're working on. And obviously, Austin Energy is one of the largest publicly powered companies in the United States. It's vertically integrated, owning generation, transmission, distribution, and metering assets, among many other things. Well, Matthew, welcome to the program.
Thank you for inviting me today.
Absolutely. Tell us a bit about what's going on at Austin Energy. We all are always very curious about the history of some of the projects, like the Shines projects and any EV charging and any other things you guys are working on. Give us a bit of a brief sharing of what's keeping you maybe busy and what's going on in the technology journey at Austin Energy.
Sure. I think I won't. I'll try not to go too far back in history, but I think as Andres is aware, the city of Austin, Austin Energy have, long prioritized conservation, and we've had fairly progressive climate goals in place since at least the mid 2000s, even predating, my tenure here at Austin Energy. And the electric utility has always been front and center in helping the city to achieve those goals, and it's something that we're very proud of. And so I think that for a long time, and Andres may remember when he was here, I mean, we were always kind of at the edge of trying to figure out, how to be the cleanest utility we can. And so we've had what I would consider to be, very stretch goals with respect to particular our supply side resources for the utility in terms of putting ourselves on a path to having carbon-free supply, right, and meeting the goals of the city to be a carbon-free city. And our resource plans that have been devised to help us meet those goals go back 15 years or more and have become increasingly more aggressive in terms of timelines. And so we've made great progress over the last decade and a half. A lot of investment in utility scale wind and solar, taking advantage of that potential in the ERCOT market. At the end of 2023, we, on a 12-month basis, matched about 70% of our load with carbon-free supply. And I think that's pretty incredible for an electric utility these days. So something that we've obviously invested a lot of time and energy in and gotten pretty far along. That said, we did a major resource plan update about a year ago, which was adopted by our city council, and we recommitted ourselves to that 100% carbon free by 2035. Again, a stretch goal. And we know that to get there, we're going to have to change our focus a little bit. So the historical, emphasis and investment in large scale utility wind and solar is changing as the market changes, and the finances around those projects aren't the same anymore. I'd say we also more recently are starting to emphasize reliability and affordability more in our resource planning. We do experience the effects of transmission congestion in ERCOT. And what that manifests itself as many times is what they call load zone price separation, where we're paying more to serve our load than the market is paying generators outside of our load zone. And so that's obviously an affordability problem for our customers and a reliability signal, right? If there's a lot of congestion bringing power into the load zone, that's something you want to do something about. Layered on top of that, of course, are some of the current trends that I think have all utilities on alert, and it was mentioned earlier, right? So large loads, electrification, and I guess the possibility and potential to have to serve a lot more new load at a much higher rate than we have traditionally. So I would say in parallel to the, the supply side strategies we've had in place, we've always tried to ensure that we're also investing in a modern grid with the expectation that we will have a lot of demand side resources in the mix. And sure enough, our most recent resource plan reaffirms that we are going to lead with energy efficiency, demand response, avoiding having to build supply if we can. And so I think we're really now internally refocusing our efforts into figuring out how we can leverage technology and programs in new ways to be able to build more capacity in our service territory around DER. So that's kind of some of the high level priorities. I would say, with the winter storms in Texas the last couple of years, that certainly has, I think, made utilities think about priorities. And so we heard loud and clear from our customers that a reliable system is paramount because of the just the expectation today that the lights are always on and electricity is always there since it powers so much of our world. And so we have to balance our plans with making sure we have a resilient system. And so I don't know if y'all heard the news last week. We announced the release of our electric system resilience plan with a commitment to invest a little bit over $700 million in over the next 10
Mm,
years in just a variety of electric system hardening, automation, and various things to make our system more resilient. So I would say that's becoming an equal, if not more important focus for us as well.
absolutely. Great, great. Johnny?
Yeah, I find it very, very interesting, of course, as a consumer. You know what we want. We want it cheap and we want it always on. And I've done a lot of technology transfer, and we spend billions on research on the grid in America that
Mhm.
goes to our major research units. And I was just interested in the new technologies that you think can be utilized. That's already out there, and talk about how difficult it is to get it on the grid. That is changing it at 400 at 40,000 us feet. I mean, how do you do that? I mean, because
Yeah.
technologies for controls are there. They've already been done. They've been established in laboratories. And how do you make the grid the analog of the computer where we know where everything is? We know
Hmm.
where if we get in trouble here, then we can switch it to here and where I'm not doing, as I like to say, load is 1, 2, 3, and somebody
Hmm.
else is doing it, load is 9, 10, 11.
Sure. Sure. Um, I'll give you my perspective. I mean, Austin Energy has invested in, I would consider, smarter and more advanced grid technologies, and this dates back to when, Andres was here. And we've continued to look for opportunities to do that. I think one of the things that, I certainly have learned over time here, and I think I've heard from many of my other peers at other utilities, is that there's a theoretical way you can build a grid to be controlled, and arguably we do have the technologies today, right? If we were building a grid from scratch, we could probably do it pretty well. But electric utilities are in this position of trying to change the plane while you're flying it. And so I think that makes it incredibly tricky because everything is so interconnected these days to make changes to what you're doing and not risk having any kind of reliability issues. So that definitely is a challenge, I think. Somebody mentioned earlier labor. I mean, that is that's very closely related to that as well, right? So you have new devices, new technologies, new programs internally. You got to make sure you're able to staff those with the right skill sets. And so it's not only a knowledge issue, but it's a numbers issue because we're under constant pressure to um, be budget conscious and not necessarily grow staff wise. So there are some, I think, operational constraints that I would say are stubborn and hard to overcome to try to make those sea changes with the grid. But we are, we've over time ensured that we've had a very successful, solar program to complement our longstanding programs in other areas, right? Energy efficiency, demand response, one of the first green building programs in the country. We are now, we've had an EV program available to our customers for a while. We are right now exploring aggregated DER, aggregated storage within our service area, and trying to, working with vendors to kind of explore what model might work well for us. So, incentivizing customers to have batteries. And so, I think whereas maybe 10 years ago, there might have been an assumption that you kind of have to build all this on-prem and do it yourself. I think now there's many more opportunities to partner with folks. We just have to do it in a way that we're able to, maintain visibility, control of our grid, and ensure that we can provide that service because ultimately we're obligated to provide that service to our customers in a reliable way.
Well, as a robot, which it is in the development, rapid development of AI, which we like to talk about here, and given the workforce, can you picture at any time the application of AI on the grid, such that we just sort of look at it rather than have people pulling levers? Now we're just controlling it by just managing the AI itself, and let AI do its thing. Let AI determine a lot of things. And I'm sure that we have lots of that stuff on in price and et cetera, traditional kinds of stuff. But what's the impact of that you see in the future of AI on your workforce, for example?
Yeah. Um, you know, I think AI is here to stay. Obviously, it's going to revolutionize everything we do. That's my opinion. And so, it'll inevitably play a role in our operations and the operations of any company. So, to answer your first question in terms of a future where AI is making decisions on the grid, I mean, autonomous things like reclosures, autonomous devices are not new. The concept of machine learning, which arguably is a form of AI, is around, and I think that the steps towards becoming more automated, as long as you step towards that in in sort of a controlled way, I think it's going to work. And so I definitely see that as part of our future. We are not actively deploying any kind of AI-backed grid control right now. I mean, I think it's something that the whole utility industry is going to be very cautious about. We definitely do, though, expect that a lot of our core systems will slowly have AI components embedded in them, right? So, whether you like it or not, your systems are going to have those capabilities, uh, you know, coming with them in the next major upgrade or whatever the case may be. So, we look forward to that and making sure that we do that in a safe and reliable way in the future. Can't, always have to make sure we you know, emphasize safety first, right? Protection of the system for our, line workers that are out there. And I think for that very reason, among others, you just don't want to ever take the human element completely away from it.
Hmm.
But yeah, the trend towards AI, I think is inevitable. And so hopefully for the benefit of everyone. In terms of the impact,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, I just said absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Llewellyn?
Thank you, Matthew. You've got quite an ambitious goal if you're going to be carbon free or try to be carbon free by 2035. Was that correct?
Yeah.
Mhm.
What are going to be your drivers there? Are you looking to put in a lot more solar or buy a lot more solar, put in more wind, buy a lot more wind, a greater reliance on batteries, or are you hoping to participate in some nuclear projects?
Well, the one exciting announcement that's happened since our resource plan was finalized was our contract we committed to with a third party to build local utility scale battery storage. And so for us, that'll be the 100 megawatts. And so that'll be the first kind of major investment in battery storage that we realize. Off the top of my head, can't remember what the in-service date is, but it's within the next couple of years. So it's a near-term project, which provides some local capacity again, addressing some of that congestion reliability risk as well. And so that's an exciting project for us. And that's consistent with the incredible numbers of battery storage you see in the ERCOT market. So we certainly are expanding, I think, our portfolio to include that resource. To the extent that we're able to find utility scale wind and solar in the future, I think that's not off the table. But we've invested in a lot of that, and we've gotten to this point where we're sort of mostly carbon free, 70%, let's say. And so the next 30 becomes tricky, right, in terms of making sure that you maintain that reliability and affordability. So no plans right now to invest in nuclear, but we are, we're keeping our eye on all of these technologies that are emerging because we know we know we are going to need innovation and emerging technologies to meet that goal. There's no clear path today, I don't think. We're close, but I still don't think there's a clear path to carbon free for utilities.
Are you rewiring? Are you putting in new connectors, which are a lot more efficient?
Like you mean the transmission level?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think our transmission assets are sort of continuously under the review cycle for our ability to sort of upgrade them and so forth. And yes, I mean I think that's all sort of part of our grid, our long-term sort of grid hardening plan. And some of those strategies can actually allow you to have some additional capacity or realize some additional capacity on those lines. So yeah, where there's opportunities to do that, we're definitely looking for those.
What about affordability, which is certainly a hot issue politically as well as in utility circles?
Yeah.
Are your rates competitive?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's one of the things that we've managed to be very successful on in the last, maybe decade, but I think we have among some of the lowest rates in the state right now. And so for our residential customers in particular, and so that's something we're proud of, but I mean that is definitely not easy, right? That means that we may not be investing as much, right, as others, right? So it's also maybe something we have to think about in terms of how can we make sure to maintain that affordability, that expectation of very affordable electricity rates while investing in the system improvements and upgrades that we need. So it kind of makes it a challenge for sure.
Is there anything at Austin Electric that you're especially proud of that's very innovative, that you think of as a breakthrough, as a dimensional change?
I mean, I think overall in our history, there's been a lot of we've had a lot of award-winning, internationally recognized programs, and a lot of that has been on the conservation side, our green building program. I think we were one of the first utilities in the nation to have a green energy program with Green Choice. Um, you know, a little bit further in the past, when Andres was here, we were, I think, one of the first utilities to invest in what was considered an advanced distribution management system, ADMS at the time, for grid visibility and control. And so, I think we're reaping that today. We're getting prepared, and this is outlined in our new resilience plan, or we're getting prepared for the future by, uh, building out a grid to allow more kind of sectionalization and faster response. I mean, I think for a long time, the one of the primary metrics that utilities tracked and still do track was reliability, right? Which includes blue sky days and how often do customers experience power outages and how long are they? But we know now that resilience is probably equally as important, if not more. So the ability to withstand and recover from events that you don't expect. And I think a lot of the events we've seen in Texas are in that category, right? We hadn't seen them before. The models didn't tell us this was going to happen, but they happened. We had the microburst event earlier this year in May, where sort of just out of the blue, one of the third most outages in our history happened in a storm that blew through in a matter of an hour. And so these events are going to happen, and our customers expect, us to be able to recover and restore power as quickly as possible. And so that could be a little bit of a different strategy than just making an ultra reliable grid. Um, so I think if I'm proud of anything, it's that we're thinking about, things like that, like resilience in ways that we may not have done before, and starting to develop strategies around those.
Hmm.
How much of your load is DER? Is it 5%, 10%, 15?
DER, so like rooftop solar and those types of things.
All of
Those
that,
sorts of-
rooftop self-generators,
Mhm.
that kind of thing.
Don't know off the top of my head. I'm going to say I'm fairly sure it's less than 10% though. And
Okay,
so it's something we're building towards.
thank you. And my final question is, I know that many utilities in Texas are uh, not turning away because they can't, but are negotiating with hyperscalers who Texas is the largest area for the development of data centers, followed by Virginia. Um, do you have them in your area, and are they keen to get on your system?
Um, uh, yes, I think there are companies that are making plans to develop these large facilities and consume a lot of load, and they're exploring and where that's possible, working with electric utilities, and so that's no exception for us. As far as I'm aware, we haven't made any major announcements, of any particular customers, but yeah, I do know that that is something that we are that there is interest in, all, like you say, all over Texas, but that includes the Austin area as well.
Thank you
Hmm.
very much.
Johnny?
Yeah. Speaking of the scenario, you get hit home, you manage the terrain is very difficult. I mean, I live in a forest. I live in Great Hills, which I consider if it went up in flames, to help us all, right? Because it'd be worse in California. And also when you look at the absolute growth that has happened in Central Texas, in Texas itself, and then if you look at the absolute growth that's in the corridor, the corridors between that's becoming cities. I think that San Antonio and Austin just one city now. I was on with Baylor for 2 hours on this morning talking about the entrepreneurship in that kind of area. So when you begin to think about managing growth and the trees, I might add. I mean, Austin's unique. Don't mess with the trees. I don't care if they are entangled with the electricity. So how do you manage? And I want to know the use of drones. Are you using drones to oversee that? The technology that's involved? Because, if you go down to Central Austin and you look at the magnificent trees, you go out you come to I live right up from the bridge there on 360, and all the magnificent trees. Don't touch our trees. I don't care if electric lines are going through them. How do you manage that? Because I think with the storms, if we got rid of all of the trees, not all of the trees, but certainly if we allow people to do it better, then we'll
Yeah.
probably have less outages. How do you manage that with the technologies?
It's a great question, and I think vegetation management is, and that's one of the components in our new
Hmm.
plan, a distribution resiliency plan that was released recently, electric system resiliency plan. Um, and I mean, you're right. I think the folks here, really take a lot of pride in their trees, and so one of the things that I know our organization has done successfully over the last several years is just ensure that we're communicating with the community. Whether that's neighborhood association meetings, some of our leaders have gone out and presented details about vegetation management, just explaining to folks why it's important, what the implications are of not ensuring that we have good line clearance when, for example, when a storm rolls through, and how that can impact our ability to get power back on. And so, we've had these recent examples in the last 5 years of major storms where a lot of it was, vegetation, right, damage to lines. And so, yeah, so, I think part of that strategy has been just making sure that we're very proactive in communicating and working with the community, ensuring they understand why our folks are there. As part of the this new plan, we've also are, we're strategizing our vegetation management, right? So, focus on where the circuits have the highest risk and focus efforts there. So, there's ways I think that we can reduce overall risk by being more surgical about how we do those things. In terms of technologies, I know we have a drone program. It's a very good question as to how we use drones for vegetation management. There are a lot of exciting technologies out there that we're exploring that can they use satellite imagery and so forth to sort of monitor and track the status of vegetation in your service territory. And so one of the things my team does is we manage demands for new technologies for the organization. And so we see these things come through and we go and do research on what applications might fit the bill. And that's definitely one of them that I think that we've explored and we're interested in. I do know that some of our pole inspection practices utilize drones because they can get up there and they kind of see things from above. And so there's a lot of neat technology that utilities are using these days to inspect poles not only from above but also kind of underground and expecting to see if there's how much rot there is in a pole in situ. So definitely a lot of exciting non-traditional IT technologies, but technologies that we can use to help with that system management.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
have
my
a
my, dis- my distinguished colleague wrote an article today about how we brought snow to the northern part of the continent. Do you expect us to have? I mean, is there any prediction from the weather services that you guys are hooked into? Was that a 100-year snowstorm when I walked out of my house and my wife is from Cleveland and she was happy and I was trying to find my golf club? I mean, is that a 100-year deal that happened, or do we expect that again in the future when you interact with the technology, with the weather?
Well, let me just make sure then it's funny we have to ask this, but are you talking about a recent one or are you talking about
No, the
like
real one
Yuri or
about
no?
4 years ago. The
Oh,
recent one was who
Yuri, yeah.
cares? I mean, I'm talking about the
Right,
one
right.
where I was locked in my house for 6 days. I thought I was back in
Well,
Chicago.
it's funny. The other day I heard that somebody said it was snowing in Cedar Park. I thought, was that? And then I had to say, you know what? Nowadays you never know, right?
You know?
It might have been not snowing in Austin and it was snowing in Cedar Park, but yeah, it's a good question. I bet you I could look it up here, whether Yuri was a 100 year or 500-year storm. I mean, I think it was probably at least a 100-year storm. And
I hope so.
yeah, I mean, it was that the polar vortex phenomenon, I think that was something that the models underpredicted on that one. But yeah, I mean, it was pretty
Mhm.
incredible for us, for
But
those
the
of us that
greatest
were
the
there.
greatest comment was to ask the governor. They said, Governor, we don't understand how Lubbock has all of the snow removals and all of the snow stuff, and Austin has nothing. And the governor said, well, Lubbock is only 2 hours from Denver.
That's
That,
true.
that was
That's
great.
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a question, Matthew. I'm wondering, what are the thoughts since Austin Energy has been so progressive on building EV charging infrastructure, and Tesla now is headquartered in town and all that. And do you guys see electric vehicle charging as a wild element to how you do load forecasting, load planning? What are your thoughts, or what can you share about where things are trending or looking like?
So as part of our resource and generation plan update, about a year ago, we did do a lot of sort of load forecasting, and we got kind of external third party assessments as well. And yes, I mean EV charging is expected. This has been the case for a while, but it's still expected to represent a really big chunk of load growth within the next decade. Um, but again, it's one of those things for I think a challenge for all of us is how much do we invest in preparing into what are we preparing for? Like what is that level you've got to
Mhm.
bank on happening because there is a lot of uncertainty there. I think we all read recently how Ford announced that they were going to be scaling back EV use. So I don't think EVs are going away. I mean, just personally, every day I see another one on the road. It looks great. I mean, they're just, they're the cars are, I think, are here to stay. And um, but the rate at which they're going to grow, I think, is still a pretty big question mark. We did though, and we did assume quite a bit, and it's all public documentation on our resource plan. But we did assume that in the future we were going to have a fairly substantial contribution to our load from electrification in general, but in particular EVs.
Hmm. Hmm. So, I think it's always a challenge. Matthew, can you comment a little bit maybe on where is Austin Energy in the journey of replacing its labor workforce as people get to retirement age and all that? Is that still a big challenge or something you guys are working on aggressively, or things that have kind of no big deal anymore? A lot of people want to work at the utility. We're fine.
I would say it is a big deal. And yes, we're continuously looking for ways, with our HR teams and our, outreach teams to identify and maybe target our efforts towards filling, key gaps. We still have this looming, challenge of people that are eligible to retire, right? And that number kind of keeps growing. But of course, you don't know when people are going to be ready to grow. So I think that's an internal strategy. Yes, we're definitely focused on that. Making sure we're developing sort of bench depth for our key roles.
Mhm.
But that is a challenge, not just for us, but I think for any kind of publicly owned utility where, salary structure and titles may not be as competitive for some key roles. And
Mhm.
that's an area we've always had challenges in. And, I would argue even in the IT part of our world, right? That's a challenge too. So some of the folks on my teams, particularly in a town like this, I mean, there's just so many technology companies. I mean, if you're really good, you're gonna have a lot of opportunity.
Sure, sure. Well, I'm looking at the time, guys, and maybe you guys can give us some final thoughts, and then we'll close with Matthew. Johnny?
Matthew, I think that you are the most important person in my life. I think that when, with all the difficulties that we have, and look, it's not just the lights coming on, it's just the Zoom coming on. And I think we must be cognizant of the fact that business enterprise now depends a lot more on electricity than we did 6 years ago or 7 years ago. We also must be cognizant that most people are staying home now, so I'm sure that the rhythm in the use of electricity in the home versus the office has changed. Uh, at one time it was office and nobody was at home, but now we certainly cannot count on that. So as I look at the rhythm of electricity and the changes in business enterprise, then it's not only just those wonderful fast electric cars that's important, or the fact that we are creating in Texas 18-wheeler lanes only to move stuff in the future, but the fact that our entire livelihood now depends on plugging in and plugging
Mhm.
up and also recharging. It is all about doing that. I have a great Longhorn former player who was doing great things in this Corey uh, who played for the Horns, and he's doing great things on portable kind of electric stuff. So I think all of these things are wonderful, but I still say this: the average American has no clue about the importance of electricity, and we still just take it for granted.
Yeah, yeah, well said. Llewellyn, final thoughts? You're muted. You're muted. Muted.
I think electricity is about as exciting a place as you can be. And I envy you, Matthew, and very interesting talking to you. I think that we're going to see new technologies come out of nobody knows where that will ease a lot of the burden. We may see technologies that enable us uh, to, with equanimity, burn fossil fuels. I'm not sure of that, but I think it's quite possible. Probably gas will be the first one that will get total carbon capture and storage of, if that's desirable. And I think we will begin to see a move back into nuclear, but my own feeling is it'll probably be, 1,000+ megawatt plants, not small modular reactors, which are unproven, and you've got the hump of the first of a kind. And I envy the people on the cutting edge of something so vital. Cheers.
Matthew, I congratulate you on and pass it along to everybody. You guys do a great job. The lights are always on, very few outages, on a yearly basis. Uh, um, and I wonder, maybe you can answer this, your take on, we always discuss, and I remember sitting at a table surrounded by Juan Garza and Roger Duncan and John Baker and uh, McCluskey discussing virtual power plants before anybody knew what it was. And obviously, our demand response program is one of the largest per user per megawatt of any utility in the nation. And the DER that you mentioned is starting to climb up. I wonder, what are your thoughts on when would Austin Energy have an aggressive virtual power plant program? Is that something that is part of the thinking? What can you share about that?
It is, and I think I mentioned earlier that we're exploring, kind of aggregated DER
Mhm.
opportunities within our service territory, and so so that is, VPP
Mhm.
is sort of part of that, and we're also actively, and this was one of the strategies that we listed in our resource plan, looking to bring on DER management system or systems, and so we'll pretty soon we'll be publishing an RFI, and we're exploring
Mhm.
different products, and we've done a lot of work internally to sort of explore what our priorities are around DER. And so that part of the scope of that is also to ensure that we're able to um, you know use VPPs if we can in our service territory. So yes, I mean, I think that's actively part of our strategy. So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I surely hope so. We did a lot of work to kind of enable that capability with the telecommunications, fiber to every substation, and all those things that you guys have been growing and continuing. And I'd be remiss to share with everybody that ERCOT recently, about a month ago to a month and a half ago, announced that they signed a partnership with GE to test their grid orchestration system, sort of their grid OS, as they call it, for DER management. So I'm sure you guys are well aware of it and looking at it, and perhaps participating in that working group and figuring out how that's going to work out at the system level. But I think that it ultimately will be the utilities and how they do it more than ERCOT, as ERCOT is really not the owner of any asset, and you guys are. So anyway, wish you all the best on everything you're working on. Thank you for everything. We're looking forward to having a calm holidays with no outages.
thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Nice to meet
Thanks for
everybody.
being with us and stay in touch. We'll circle back and we'll have you again maybe in a year or so to see where things are.
You bet.
All right. Thank you.
Take us away, Johnny.
I've been down this road before. I remember every tree, every single blade of grass holds a special meaning for me. And I remember everything in every hotel room and every song I ever sang on a guitar out of tune. And I remember everything, things I can't forget. The way you turned and smiled on me on the first night that we met. And I remember every night, the ocean eyes of blue. How I miss you in the morning light, like the roses, Mr. Dew.
Woo!
And I know that Matthew plays guitar.
Hi, cheers.
Matthew, you play guitar, right? Yeah, I can tell that you can play guitar because you're watching my fingers.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you very much.
Take
Okay,
care, guys. All the
take
Okay.
care now.
best.
All
Happy
right.
Bye-bye.
holidays. Happy
Happy
New
Bye bye.
holidays.
Year,
Uh-huh.
everybody. We'll convene back in January 14th. January
Yep.
14th.
Sounds good.
Take
Okay.
care.
Bye bye.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.